Sergeant, you mentioned rivers. I understand the 5th was called the Paddlefoot Division. How did it get that name?
That was probably because they crossed so many rivers. They had to cross a river every time they went someplace. Crossed the Rhine River, the Main River, the Templer River. I think we crossed that Moselle River about 5 times.
Sergeant, I understand you've been in the Army for 17 years, is that right?
That's right, sir.
Well, no doubt you've served in many units during this time. How does the 5th compare with some of the units in which you've served?
I consider them head and shoulders above all other units I've ever been in. I think it was an excellent choice of the President to designate the 5th to be reactivated.
When the day for reactivation finally came, the 5th was given the designation by which it will be known from now on. The 5th Infantry Division, mechanized. The ceremonies at Fort Carson began, as at Fort Hood, with the rendition of honors and the posting of the national colors. This was followed by other ceremonies, which included the uncasing of the battle colors. The history of many of the units now part of the 5th Infantry Mechanized goes as far back as the Indian and Mexican Wars. Most, of course, have fought battles in later conflicts. The principal speaker for the event was introduced by the unit's commander, Major General, then Brigadier General Ashton H. Manhart.
It is my privilege and honor to introduce Lieutenant General Emerson L. Cummings, the Commanding General of the United States 5th Army. General Cummings.
General Manhart, distinguished guests, members of the United States Army, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud and honored to be here today to take part in this ceremony activating the 5th Infantry Division mechanized. This division has a most distinguished heritage. By accepting the historical heritage passed on today, every member of the division accepts also the responsibility of living up to the traditions manifested by the division's motto, "We will." And if we are to be successful, the 5th Division, as well as the entire Army, must live up to this same motto, "We will."
At the conclusion of General Cummings' address, the men of the 5th passed in review. As the newest and destined to be one of the most modern of the Army divisions, no one regards his assignment to it with more pride than its commander, General Manhart.
General Manhart, what does the reactivation of the 5th Infantry Division mechanized mean to you?
We think it means 2 things. The primary one is this is one response which our government is making to a threat that, in our opinion, has not decreased in the last few months. The other thing we think is interesting is the fact that this is the first division of its type being created by the Army, and the 2 principal objectives are to gain flexibility and mobility.
General, President Kennedy has placed great emphasis on our ability to wage conventional warfare. Does this mean that we will not use our atomic weapons on the battlefield should it be necessary?
No, it does not. The 5th Infantry Division Mechanized will have an atomic capability which will exist in the Honest John, in the 8-inch howitzer, and also in the Engineer Battalion. The division will be prepared to fight the full spectrum of combat which we may expect to meet today.
General, what are the training plans for your division?
We propose in the division to set the standards of the Strategic Army Corps and to maintain these standards. There are none higher in the Army today.
The 5th Infantry, as well as the 1st Armored, have both demonstrated that the training of organizations such as theirs could be accomplished in less time than was thought possible before. 6 months later, the 5th was ready. As the 1st Mechanized Division underrode, the men of the unit realized they were a showcase unit whose development would be closely watched by the Army and the nation. As a pilot unit, they realized they had a job to do, and they have achieved it. Today, this fighting organization stands as a vital bulwark of our nation's defense posture. The men of the 5th Infantry Division Mechanized are prepared to have their motto, "We will," tested at any time, at any place, and under all conditions. You and I have witnessed the reactivation of 2 combat divisions whose continuing devotion to duty and mission will, we can be sure, always be in the highest tradition. While all of us hope that the tremendous fighting capabilities of the dedicated Americans who now constitute the 1st Armored and 5th Infantry Divisions may never be required on a field of battle, it is a satisfaction to know that 2 such outstanding organizations have rejoined our defenses should the need ever arise.